For the pirates is advertising. Despite being illegal, most succeed in attracting advertisers. Some even issue rate cards, and to date, no advertiser has been successfully prosecuted.
Kiss FM advertising works.
However, pirates claim that advertising only just covers their expenses.
We make a couple of £100 a weekend, sometimes £400-500, but then majority of that is spent back out again on engineers, costs, rents, stuff like that.
Dynamite.
There are richer pickings to be made elsewhere. Many pirates are now established promoters on London's nightclub scene.
For the first hour, the very best in dance floor justice.
The power of the pirate always guarantees a big turnout.
Normally, if a club knows that a pirate radio is coming in, they'll give them a good deal because they know it's going to be packed out, they're going to make money on the bar anyway. It's just as full as it can possibly get, and a lot of people often get turned away, which is why I always get there early.
And packed houses mean another nice little earner for the pirates, according to former pirate DJ, now with Capital, Tim Westwood.
You know, there's a lot of money on that side. There's a lot of money to be earned at gigs. You can put some very big gigs. You know, if you can fill a big dance, say with 3,000 people at £5 a head, that is a lot of money to be earned.
If the pirates limited their fundraising to advertising or to promoting their own dances, their profits, though illegal, would hardly be sinister. But recently, some pirates have started to sail into murkier waters. Their DJs' reputations as trendsetters have given the pirates enormous influence over the record-buying public. And the pirate bosses haven't been slow to try to exploit that influence. For example, here's one of last year's big hits, Cross the Tracks. This particular disc is an illegal copy. It's called a bootleg. And that's how you make your money. You copy someone else's record, you promote it like mad on Pirate Station, then you sell the copies and you pocket the cash. Of course, it's the pirate's ability to promote the record that makes bootlegging profitable. Cross the Tracks by Massey and the Macks is a reissue of a record first put out in 1972. What prompted the record company to re-release it was the success of a bootleg made by a pirate DJ. It sold an estimated 15,000 copies at about £10 a time. In theory, a DJ only plays the records he believes are the best around, and that's what his audience assumes he's doing. But a clever pirate can cash in on his position of influence by plugging his own bootlegs. The music lovers amongst the pirates deplore this end of the business.
They're illegal records, no matter how you look at them. They are illegal records. Unfortunately, it's been very popular. It's the only bad thing about pirate radio, in a sense, is that the old music's become so popular that it's led to this bootlegging scam going on around London.
What?
But actually, the most dubious scam of all is a unique form of record marketing which amounts to bribery, or payola. This week, Crush rose to number 3 in the charts with their hit record House Arrest. Next week, they could be number 1. What's unusual about this is that Crush play a kind of dance music known as house that normally gets no further than specialist clubs and record stores. The foundation of their success was built by the pirates, according to their producer and manager, Amric Rai.
We sent records to Capital and Radio 1, the odd records, just in a vague hope, but they get inundated with stuff. You know, we weren't that optimistic about Capital. Whereas the pirates, we knew that we could blanket cover the pirates, and we knew that they would be interested in that kind of music because it's very much in their area. For 6 weeks to 8 weeks, the pirates played House Arrest every day. It was blanket play. They were totally behind it. That then got the wheel rolling in terms of Capital and Radio 1.
When Amric Rai first went to the pirate, they too were lukewarm. So he decided to fuel their interest with cash. He went to LWR and paid them £400 to play the record regularly for a week. In pirate circles, this is known as a power play. To the record industry, it's payola.
Crush was power played on LWR. It was something that I felt it was important. We were getting, our 12-inch, we were getting plays on the specialist on the more specialist stuff. But what I wanted to try and do was get across the board on the pirates, like Kiss FM, even JBC, which is like a community, more reggae-based, more Jamaican-based community station. I even power played Crush on there as well. I think that's really important. I mean, it costs £400 to power play on LWR. Worth every penny, I think.
Cabaret Voltaire are another group who've enjoyed success due to power play on the pirates.
There's another record that I did with Cabaret Voltaire, who are almost unknown to that kind of listener, to the black market here. And I power played something, an import from Manhattan that we did, and it sold. There was 4,000 sales for £400. That generates something like 20,000 quid. That makes fairly good sense, I think.
LWR boss Zach admits that without the £400 power play, Crush would not have had much of an airing.
In actual fact, unless they went for a power play, it wouldn't be heard that often, because there's so much in the way of house coming out at the moment that if he left the house arrest just for the open market, he'd get a couple of plays here and there, but certainly wouldn't get a continued play, which is necessary for the record to get the exposure it needs.
Far from being repentant, the LWR staff claim that they invented power play.
What happened was that we originated a concept which we labelled power play. Now, what we said at the time was that obviously there's companies who'd like to put their product on view, if we could use that phrase, and therefore, with the stations needing funding, we'd allow them to actually pay for advertising, and we call it a power play.
To find out just how widespread the practice of power play is, we called up 3 of London's leading pirates and asked each of them if they took this form of payola. One of them, JBC, came straight out and admitted that it did, justifying the practice on the grounds that its listeners knew what was going on anyway. The other 2, TKO and Time FM, denied any involvement. But we decided to check their denials by getting a member of the programme team to ring up, posing as a producer with a record to promote and money to spend. This time, their response was quite different. The first station we tried was TKO. They told our man that for £300 a week, they would power play the record once every 2 hours. And to allay any lingering doubts, TKO stressed that their business methods are above reproach.
We pride ourselves as being a properly run and organised business. We might be a pirate radio, but we're certainly not cowboys.
Time FM.
Time FM from Harlesden wanted a modest £150 a week for 5 plays a day, but were so busy they weren't sure they'd be able to plug his record.
We're quite truthful. We're overloaded with work at the moment, and we're actually turning away work because we can't cope. As you can see, they've got 16 power plays up there. Last week they had 20.
Yes.
So you can see, it's a business.
Time then went one step further. They implicated several major record labels in the practice of power play or pirate payola.
I'd like to say we're very good. So a lot of big people are using us, so we must be effective somehow.
Hard evidence of pirate payola is difficult to come by, since all the alleged transactions are made in cash. And it could be that Time FM is simply boasting to impress a potential customer. However, the allegation is serious, and it's one that the DTI clearly believe. And that means some record companies could soon face prosecution by the DTI.
On a record company who was paying for the playing of records or supplying free records, we would be looking at that supply in terms of aiding and abetting the main offence of operating the station. If we prosecuted and the record company was convicted, it would be subject to the same level of penalty as the actual operators of the station.
Though several leading record companies denied any involvement, one admitted that even if record company executives don't personally approach the pirates with bribes, it's almost impossible for companies to control the actions of their artistes or agents. Adrian Sear of Polydor told us that if an artist's manager decides that he wants to use under-the-counter methods to promote the record, it's out of our control, even though it's on our label. Whatever the record companies say, there's no doubt about 2 things. One, that the pirates are making profits out of payola, and second, that the money is coming from the record industry. And a great deal of money it is too, running into hundreds of thousands of pounds. With so much at stake, it's hardly surprising that all the pirates want to grab as much of the take as they possibly can. And if they can't do it by attracting more listeners, some unscrupulous operators are prepared to get ahead simply by eliminating the competition.
And the address is Alice's Restaurant, 175.
One of the earliest casualties of the war was Radio Alice's Restaurant, forced off the air in 1986. Persistent intimidation from rival stations just proved too much.
We did have problems on Alice's Restaurant, primarily with other stations. As the band began to fill up with pirates, as more people discovered that they could do it, some slightly more ruthless elements crept in, and they certainly crept in our direction. We found, for example, that people were waiting at the bottom of tower blocks with crowbars for us. The commercial pressure has become so great because they've realised that actually it's an extremely lucrative game to be in. And if they can make money out of it by treading on other people's toes, by stealing transmitters, by breaking up aerials and attacking the operators of other stations, then they're going to do it because they can literally make thousands of pounds a week out of it.
And inevitably in this war, the success of stations like LWR has made them prime targets.
Yes, lately we've suffered from a number of saboteurs. The cutting of our kayaks, which is basically what leads from the transmitter to the aerial, that's been cut on a number of occasions. The mains has been cut. Our rigs have gone missing. That is the transmitter. So we've suffered a lot, in excess of 8 individual cases of sabotage.
Ultimately, the only way to stop the corruption and the violence is to put the pirates out of business altogether. That's what the government's been trying to do for some years. But though the tactics they've employed have often been spectacular, they haven't been particularly successful.
It's a raid!
This is a recent raid on pirate station JBC by the DTI.
Just let them wait. They're raiding. Nice one.
Their officers carried out 312 such raids last year in the London region alone. But the pirates are still flourishing. There seems little immediate prospect that the DTI will put the pirates out of business or bring the violence to a halt. For despite this civilized scene, DTI officers have now themselves become casualties of the violence, according to the DTI's Dillis Gain.
Yes, we've got evidence of a lot of money being tied up in this kind of operation, and obviously it increases people's determination to stay on air. This means that we've come up against vigilantes when we're doing tracing of the stations, and we've come up against violence both to our staff and to their vehicles and equipment.
But the government has another shot in its locker. It could persuade the pirates to come in from the cold. In the next few days, the Home Secretary, Douglas Hurd, is expected to announce sweeping changes to local radio, involving the creation of some 300 new local community stations. In London, however, the number devoted to so-called communities of interest, under which the pirates might qualify, is likely to be limited to a handful. And the pirates could lose out in the competition for licenses with other interest groups.
I would think that 1 or 2 of the existing pirates might stand a chance of getting a license, but that still leaves a couple of dozen who are going to be excluded from the new legitimate radio system. You must ask yourself whether they'll go off the air. Why should they be good boys and quietly fade away? They think they have an audience, they think they have a purpose for being there, and simply because they're then going to be competing with 1 or 2 similar legitimate stations won't be a reason for them disappearing.
Ultimately, the pirates are unlikely to fade away, for if they fail in their license bids, their instincts are to sail on regardless.
If there's good chances that, it'd be covered by something that was better than us, and it may not be worth it, but I can't see it because we've got such a strong following and we've got such a strong team behind us.
We'd persevere and continue as an independent free radio station.